Hey, this is Oteil. If you're liking what you're hearing, head on over to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get your bus pass for an extra episode every week.
Welcome back to another episode of Comes a Time. I'm Mike.
I'm Oteil.
My brain's on the floor in a puddle.
Yeah. It's kind of a big day. Weed got legalized in New York City.
Yeah.
And on the same day, we had the incredible Alex and Allyson Gray on our podcast. And honestly, I couldn't have had any higher hopes for any guest, and it was even better than what I was hoping for.
You know, we record these intros after the episodes, so we're both just kind of dumbfounded and glowing and filled up and excited, and you guys are in for a pretty incredible next hour and a half. That's all I can say, really. I had no idea. Before these podcasts, it's like, do you research? Do you think about questions? But I just smoked a bowl and listened to Tool. And I was like, that's really, I want to just let this be what it's going to be. And couldn't have been more of that.
Yeah, they are truly amazing. Their story together, they got together so young, and they both saw the light so young and formed this partnership so young that has lasted. And like Eric was just saying, we were just talking about before we started to record this intro, like to see the way they look at each other still. And whoa, did you see the brightness of my light just like go times 100? Yeah. Whoa. Okay, everybody saw that. Wow. Wow.
Enjoy the... Yeah.
My light just like increased in intensity by like 200%. Anyway, I was saying that what they built from their early 20s, it's still there. And now it's like this tree that's just grown up. And now it's like turned into the Entheon, this church that they have going, and that is, a church with no dogma, with no barriers, if you believe in love and the spirit and the mystical, you're welcome. Here's my kids probably bumping on the door, but enjoy. That's all I could say. I could go on forever.
Well, enjoy it. This was unbelievable. And thank you to the Grays for joining. And thanks for everybody for listening. Go to patreon.com/comesatimepod for bonus content, extra episodes, exclusive interviews. And thank you to Osiris for having us. And go to osirispod.com and check out all the amazing episodes and other podcasts. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit, my brain's on the floor. Yeah. Goodbye.
And love and light.
Yes. Thanks.
I was like, oh my God, I just fell in love because I'm a person that used to go to church, but I found like my theology grew more, I wanted to go to a place where nobody was excluded, and religion is necessarily a tribal thing, and so then I'm watching you guys, I'm like, oh, visionary artist, cool, and then you talk about the Entheon. I ran to my wife, I was like, I found a church that I could go to, but it's not open yet, but it's going to be, and I was just like, she thought I was so cute, So I'm such big fans, and now to have a podcast and have you guys on it, I'm just like, I just love you guys.
Oh, we love you too. Oh, what was that?
That's mine.
I think the last time I hung with you is at Bicycle Day.
Yeah.
In San Fran.
Okay. We did a lot of bicycle days in San Francisco, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. But really never one with so many Grateful Dead fans.
Maybe that was our last one in San Francisco.
It was a real crescendo, I thought, because it brought a lot of communities together in a really beautiful way.
Yeah.
I was telling Mike about it. There's this one picture there, and I really debated like microdosing for that show, but with the band I was in, I still didn't have my bearings yet. Like, you know, it was still kind of new. And I was like, let's just play the show. But I was walking through looking at the different art paintings and stuff. And this one painting, I should be shot for not being able to remember who it is. It looks so 3D that it kind of pulled me in like that for a second. And I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I don't even need to microdose. Like, just being here is going to do it. It's really incredible experience.
And I had the pleasure of being at that Barclays Tool concert in 2019, right before the pandemic.
Right before February.
Yes, and you guys came out, and we all got to cheer you on and say thank you, Alex. And man, that was neat. I'll tell you.
That was really neat. And it's 10 blocks from where we've lived for 37 years. Fantastic. We walked there with our whole crew. The neighborhood is so amazing. And we ran into people selling Alex's t-shirts, already pirating his art out on the street.
Of course.
It's got to be one of the weirdest paintings that I've ever done, simply because of these strange things that can happen. All the Tool art that I did were kind of studies for a painting that I started after the Tool stuff basically got published. It took me about a year and a half to do the painting, which was happening over the last year and a half or so.
Just finishing it. We're just actually, it's not in the room today, I'm sorry to say, because we're photographing it over at Entheon.
But it's the Great Turn, and it's a painting and an image that people who at least have the Tool album or went to that concert and stuff would be familiar with. And so it was odd to be working on a painting and seeing a pirate shirt being sold with the painting you're working on. So I relish those oddities, and including the tattoos and things like that wind up on some really incredible fan's skin. Yeah. Because of this.
Well, a number of your pieces in recent years do complete on digital before they complete in oils, which is, gives you a lot more flexibility to work on the piece and change things and, make before you make the one-on-one, the one, and it's 10 feet tall.
Oh my God.
The painting itself is 8 by 10 feet tall. So we had to take it even out of the studio, which has very high ceilings. So we had to take it somewhere else to photograph it, in another building. But it's just an amazing piece. You'll see it. And
I can't wait.
We'll send you a picture.
That concert actually changed the painting, though, too.
Oh, wow.
Because at the end of the concert, they had that big spiraling eye tunnel.
Right.
Just a massive spiraling eye tunnel, which is basically a design that I had that I worked with Matt Santoro, an amazing computer animation artist, digital sculptor, and we worked on creating this eye tunnel effect. But I had never seen this particular shot where it was just a huge spiral into the light, and so I thought, that's got to be in my painting,
When did you first get that? When did you first get that image? Tell them.
Well, I've been struggling with various elements of this image, which is basically a figure that's polarized. It's a two-sided figure. One's going down, basically, and one's trying to rise up. And so they're kind of pulling against each other. And the idea is that it's the great turn toward the best outcome for everyone, toward life, toward spirit. And so it takes a lot of muscle to go there as well. And so with that sort of attitude, but also acknowledging the shadows that are there as well. Still trying to make the lift off. And
may I say that as we age and we try to perfect ourselves, we try to become better people, many of us, and there's this pull, that we have, I think, especially when we're younger, to go in other directions that may be going towards the darkness. We pull away from that. We it's a painting of body, mind, and spirit. That's the thing that I love. And it's life size, but there's two of them. One goes down, one goes up. So it had to be 10 feet tall. Alex likes to paint life size. Some of your best work is life size. So
I love it. 10 feet tall, just like the struggle. Yes. I mean, it's such a theme on our show, this like struggle. I was thinking of it today when I was listening to Raghu Marcus and on a podcast, and I was thinking like, okay, we're basically struggling, just trying to be a little bit nicer, be a better person, whatever. And I have this image with so many people like, oh, Teal, you're so nice, And I'm beating myself up thinking, well, tell that to Nigel, my son, who's 6 years old, because, I get so frustrated when he just tries to do. And I'm like, wow, you just got to try to let stuff go. It's such a test for me. So I'm basically getting mad at him because he's exactly like me. Right? And it hit me today. I was like, okay, you got to be nicer to him because he's just like you.
Yeah.
And it's just such basic things. To me, that's that struggle, the 10-foot tall struggle to just be better. And maybe spirituality is just that you care, that you give a crap. Your intention,
That's the key. It's the intention. It's the intention of love. You're getting frustrated because you care and love them so much. You know what I mean? It's not like you're getting frustrated because you're like, this little guy's bugging me. Maybe sometimes, but
Well, you want to go to the light also. I mean, You want to go toward the light. I said the thing about getting older and you going towards the light, but even a very small child is so pure that they so want to please you. All they want to do, here's the two things they want to do. They want to please you and they want to contribute to you. So it's like when you are sincerely grateful to them for one thing or another, whatever it is. Yeah. They love that. And it lasts for a lifetime, doesn't it? I mean, is it your first?
He was my first, yeah. And I had him at 50, so I had him late. And then we adopted a little girl from India named Kavi.
Oh.
And they're really something. They're great. They're both really smart, and they figured out their free will early. And they were like, oh, I cannot do what you want. Or, oh, I can lie to you about, and it's cute, obviously they're not malicious, but they do test me on purpose.
Of course, the minute they come out of mommy, they are moving away from you. Don't forget this. That's the minute they come out, they are always, on the go, away from you. So every time you think you can rein them in, you have to be really careful because all they really want to do is move forward, right?
They want to be free, and you cannot blame them. I mean, I get it, but I feel like I'm learning almost all of my spiritual lessons. Like you can learn them intellectually and emotionally, but like you really learn them with kids.
That's why we call it the parent training, don't we, Alex?
That's great.
Parent training. It's our training.
That's what I feel.
It's an immersive experience. Yes.
Integral.
Good parents.
Around.
Yeah.
Good parents, at least. Yeah. They get immersive for sure. Allyson, you made an amazing point just about even saying like, as we age. Oteil and I had a conversation earlier today about, being on the road as younger, me as a younger comic, him as a younger musician, how, you're 27, 37, whatever, in a hotel, and you're like, you don't realize that the 40-year-old or the 50-year-old you would be happy just staying in the room, staying in bed, maybe fall asleep to a documentary or whatever, At that time, you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? What am I supposed to do? So it's kind of like when you're able to kind of look back and say, like, yeah, with age, like, boy, just thinking about that makes me tired now. You know?
Well, we
How did
did a
you
lot of
guys get
traveling
so?
ourselves, didn't we?
Yeah.
We went all over the world as well.
But it feels like you guys figured out so much so early. You've all been together a really long time.
Yes, we have. We met in art school in 1974. We fell in love at the end of the school year in 1975 when Alex did LSD in my apartment.
Most amazing story.
My party, my end of school party, Alex tripped for the first time. It was his first trip. I had been experimenting for 6 years since I was 17. But, and I was 23 and Alex was 21. And I was a graduate student and Alex was an undergraduate.
Yeah, suicidal undergrad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she rescued you from the brooding dark.
Oh, Teal, literally, right?
Well, I didn't mean to, but I mean, I did like to give a party, you know.
Yeah.
I'd say that the great turn happened at that party. Basically, for me, I would turn from shadow toward a light that was clearly there. And and it's been, that solidified our bond, I think. And
we never left. Yeah. Basically, he went home and then he called me the next day to tell me about his first trip. And I had, because of Ram Dass, you were saying Raghu Marcus, because of Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now, I had a spiritual opening that changed my life from, super not godly to like that. Got to go find some place to meditate. That's what that book did, and the trip that followed. So, but anyway, I had this secret, basically, that I'd been making art about on the side and not showing anybody. But it was just this secret life about my spiritual opening, because it was very non-spiritual, times, So Alex calling me in like that he had that experience, the God contact experience in my apartment. He's so amazing anyway. I mean, I always knew he was amazing. In school, he had done things that gathered people around him. The first time I ever laid eyes on him, he was showing his billboard portfolio. He had put together this gorgeous handmade book, because it wasn't even desk publishing in those days. It was really like a handmade book of his billboard year. He took a year like a performance artist. See, we were both performance installation artists in this class called Conceptual Mixed Media. Anyway, he was always of interest. His works were raw and self-revelatory, And so then I got interested by watching your art. We fell in love with each other's art first, I think.
Yeah, she was the most interesting other artist in the class, I thought, in terms of, because she was dealing with, I think, emotionally difficult subject matter, and it was
self.
Investigating the shadow and the self and the struggle, as you say.
Yeah. I've heard you tell the story of, leading up to meeting or going to that party, Alex, and your vulnerability about the desperation that you felt leading up to it is really a lesson and a hopeful guide, like a beacon on vulnerability, because you said you were really kind of scratching at like finding any reason to stay alive. And then you went to her party, took acid, saw light, and she was the answer to your prayer. It's so incredible.
Yeah, we're trying to emulate that. I know that's how music is for me. I love the way you're so intentional about your art being this spiritual exercise, because Mike and I met this way over Although we didn't fall in love and get married, but
Well,
we are having a bromance.
I love you,
guess,
Teal. Yeah, I love you.
But he had one of those God experiences, and I had a real heavy one, and we confessed it to each other, and that was really why we wanted to do a podcast. I was doing his podcast, and I said, "Man, it'd be cool to do a podcast about spirituality, to put out there what happened to us, and hopefully reach other people that it happened to, and they may not, it may be keeping it a secret or whatever. It's just a personal thing, but to try to like make contact. And so to have you guys here right now, your whole thing about, go ahead.
We didn't ever think we were going to found a church.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you become a container for spiritual art, let's say, art that is a spiritual path, if you create a container for others in that context, it is a church. People come to where the Spirit is. And so for me, I grew up Jewish and I love Jewish. Happy Passover, everybody. But I really did contact the divine through psychedelics. So, and Alex had that same experience. And there were a lot of people who found Alex's work. My work flies under the radar a little bit on that matter. But Alex's work was so narratively blatant. This is my piece. It's like, it's a meditation for me. It is a definite sit down and meditate on the vast fabric of all the universe. But Alex's work is so narrative and so calls people in who have had this God contact experience. And so we ended up, having a place where people could gather to kind of commiserate and be able to speak openly about their spiritual life.
I love that. I love the there's that openness. Like, you should be able to be honest in a spiritual community. What did somebody, I think it was in Victor Wooten's book, it said, better to have a question that you can't answer than to have an answer that you can't question.
Oh, I like that. That's
right.
Good, right?
Yeah, and
that sounds like Victor.
Yeah, well, my theology mentor was like that. After I had my God experience being raised, completely different than that. I was told, go back and read the Bible, but with an open heart. Like, don't be always looking for contradictions or this. Just go give it a fair reading and open your heart and your mind. And it blew me away. And I met this guy, Jim Barnett, who just passed away. It just broke my heart at 59 years old. And he's a Southern Baptist preacher, right? His dad stood up with Martin Luther King in the early 60s, and they just got, bomb threats and death threats and all that stuff, that happened. But I already had a notebook full of questions like this from the previous O'Teal that was studying it to pick it apart. And then I read it, and now I had this other additional notebook full of questions, and I brought it to him and sat it on his desk, and he teaches religion at a university, and he never shrunk from one question. And there was never an answer that I couldn't question. And he changed my life, and I thought it's been my hope somehow to like undo the baggage. And I feel like we argue over semantics, or we miss the boat on a lot of things. And you guys just hit the bullseye when you said Bibles in general are primarily works of art. And if we look at them that way, then we see clearly what the intent is and what the and I can't tell you how many different people I've told that to, and you see it stop them, and they're like, oh my God, you're right. There's songs, poems, stories. And then so when I saw you guys, of course, I was just like, man, I'm so knocked out. I love your intentionality about making art as your spiritual practice, along with other, it's not the only one.
Yes.
That just kind of evolved naturally for you?
Well, I guess the minute you, quote, see God, or what you interpret as that spirit that is inside of all of us and is the cause of everything and is the ongoing daily miracle that we get to experience in our lives, with our consciousness. Just being alive in a cosmos like this is a miracle. It's just, and I don't know how anyone can question the miraculousness of being alive. But at 21, I certainly did.
Right.
Certainly did. I was ready to cash out. So, it's just a matter of perception. My perception was blown open to the light that, gosh, I saw it everywhere after that, but I saw it in the Bible. I saw it in all of those stories. I could find the mystic light that was the underground river that ran through all the religions. Yeah. And that, a mystic light, is tied to the creative spirit. That's another name for God. We just call it the creative spirit that got everything started. And what else could we be but the outgrowth and the further evolution of that force that's in everything? And so that's natural. I think that's natural aesthetics. So, and we already see some people are born doing this.
Yeah.
And they have a beat, they have a way, or they have a movement that's, oh my God, did you see that guy move? They've got a way. Everybody's got a character. And that character can find the medium, the perfect medium, to express the soul of that person. And that is what art is a testimony for. And that, frankly, anybody can do it. There isn't, you're born doing it. Man, did you ever see a child, your kids making art?
Oh, yeah.
That, it's mind-blowing just to watch how completely natural and Zen-like and out of their mind, but into the art they are, and how difficult that is for us to achieve. I'm sure, to find that natural awakened state, flow state that is the optimal thing. When miracles in music, in art happen, it's in that space where you elevate and you're cohabiting with something big, and maybe it's got a presence to it, and you share in that light, and breakthroughs happen, and so I think that this is why it's the renewing thing. It's like springtime is this time when everything's awakening. And so like the creative force is that like spring awakening in our soul. And we blossom with art. We blossom with creation, Yeah.
I wanted to slip in there. Oh, you're going to lose your thing again. How science today, with its resurgence of experimentation and research, is proving true what happened for both of us. For you, the whole thing you were mentioning about suicide is being, tested and measured now, that it is actually help to people who have suicidal ideation, and how much it reduces that in people for their treatment, in a therapeutic sense. Alex self-medicated, and it worked out, and it put you on the other side of suicide. And for me, I have to say, the studies of how to have a mystical experience relate exactly to what happened to me in 1971, when I knew nothing about that, because of Ram Dass's book, where he said, I was telling you that the same thing happened to me with the Ram Dass book, telling me to have an intention. It didn't really tell me. It did speak to me in the sense of have an intention to see the white light. That's what that book said to me. And go do it do the experience in a different way than I had ever done it before, which was a dark room. I had not 3 years of, climbing mountains and riding bicycles and going to parties. I had not had the in the dark room experience by myself. So I did. And I had the intention to see the white light. And, 65% of people have a mystical experience with the proper intention and the proper set and setting. Set and setting being my dark room. So it's like, I from that book, I got that. And they did the experiment in 1965, the Good Friday experiment. But then they did it again at Johns Hopkins in 2006. Yeah. And they're continuing to do it. And that's what they find, that if you want to have that God contact experience, you can actually follow the little recipe, and 65% of us will actually meet with the divine. Can any religion that we can think of, any tradition that we love, we all love our traditions, but just any tradition that we love, claim such things as a one-time, one-shot deal and see God 65% of the time? That's pretty.
It's the thing that we talked about, knowing each other for a half hour, Oteil and I. We had to take a pee break during our podcast that we were doing, and when the record was on pause, we kind of just got to talking, and I shared with Oteil, I found this amazing life-changing therapist that does hypnotherapy, but the purpose and the intent is, it's not you go kind of get hypnotized and walk out feeling, oh, that was nice, I quit smoking or my back feels better. It was going deep and unpacking, and and I went back to one of the most terrifying experiences in my life as a child. And I, as an adult, was able to go back to this moment and let the kid there know that I was there for him and it was going to be okay. And she said, fill this room, like if a person is missing, or if you want to replace someone with the ideal version of that. And before she could even finish talking, it was like the walls and the ceiling exploded with just the brightest beam of light that it was too big for my two human eyes to consume, and it was just this everywhere below me, around me. It was just, I was covered with light. And I told Oteil, it was like, I felt like I met love for the first time. And that's when he goes, that's it. That's what it is. And it was that I never had that experience before. Psychedelics you knew the experience was there. It was just kind of you're feeling around for it. But that bright white light, I didn't try to picture it. It just came, it showed up when it needed to,
It's funny. And that's both of us had these God experiences not on psychedelics, even though we had both done lots of psychedelics. And I could remember those trips, which for me all were about this journey. I was 17. We were trying to figure stuff out. And I did very low doses. We would just talk. I mean, it's basically like a philosophy class, And we just figured out, it was like, love is the problem. It's the not love is the problem, and love is always the solution, But then when I had my mystical experience, I was able to integrate it all. And it's now you just, like you say, I find it in everything. Are you guys familiar with Abraham Joshua Heschel?
Heschel sounds familiar. Tell us about him.
He wrote a book called God in Search of Man. He's a professor of ethics and mysticism at the Jewish Theological Seminary. He used to march with Martin Luther King. You'll see him in the pictures. And his whole thing in God in Search of Man is that man has lost the sense of wonder. He's like, that's where you find God, in your sense of wonder. So what you said, oh, I see this divine in everything, everywhere you look, how could I miss it? And that's, so it's and you said it's natural. It's in nature. It's there for us to, kids can see it. And I wonder, how did I get disconnected from it?
That's
your mind.
Yeah. Life.
It's just our minds that disconnect us, constrict it, and make an small in us. When we touch that nature, it's infinite. It's just it doesn't stop. It's the presence that we're the little tip of the iceberg of, you know.
So is it like weeds, letting weeds grow up in your mind to like strangle it out, and then you gotta like weed out the weeds?
Wow, that's a great metaphor, I think, in a way, because there are probably a lot of them. They just drift into the soil of our soul, and we don't, pay attention to where that came from, or something, or why was that child left hurting, at one stage in ourselves, and that we have to go back and love, and forgive and find whatever other forces are there to bring that light of forgiveness and love in again. It's just like, I don't know, repeat,
Alex says that love is God's secret name, because people have, in the past, over periods of time, had an aversion to the word God, and it just has, because people have done such terrible things in the name of God.
Yeah,
it isn't really God; it's the people doing the terrible things, in the name of, and it's wrong, because God is in every tradition. God is the the purpose or the basis of every tradition. Obviously, the purpose is to be better people and to get along and make something beautiful together. That's at the heart of it all, really. Right. And we've certainly been experiencing that here at COSM, where we have a group of people that have been living on a piece of property with a number of buildings and getting along and not leaving. We're basically, delivery, people, this is all through COVID. And Alex and I haven't gotten our vaccinations yet, but we're about to. We're just about to. It hasn't come yet. We just haven't even been able to. And we're older and everything. But anyway, getting along and making something beautiful together. We've been working on that here. COSM has been a thing since 1996. We were a nonprofit, and then in 2008 we became an interfaith, a radically welcoming interfaith art church. That's what we call it. It's all about creativity and art. That's where we get our spiritual practice. We get together. We just got together last Sunday with our members, where we sit in the Zoom room and make art together to music, and then we talk about it. That's like visiting, you know what I mean? So for the past year, we've been doing that and living here unmasked with people who don't leave. And we've been in COSM since 1996. We've had people working with us, but we have never had a group that no one left for a year. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
It was extraordinary the way you can learn to get along, to make something beautiful, which is staying open and being here on the other side for our community to, but staying in touch with our community too.
Yeah, trying to find new ways, like you have been here, like finding new friends through social media. That's been one of the, I guess, side blessings of a hell of a year that many people, by out of the necessity for social contact, have found these remarkable ways. Zoom and everything has made the conversations happen, I think, with a greater intensity now. We need contact like this. We need to make friends outside of our circle, our little circle. And we need to extend our circle and see how many friends we can make, because the wave of love is going to come through one friendship at a time, and one kind of barrier breakdown at a time.
We have to be a beacon.
Yeah.
You see, those of us who have had this opening to divinity and goodness and are seeking the light have to be a beacon. That's what a beacon does. It sends out the light. And so you're kind of like a place where light happens and in everybody's in communities. I mean, your workplace is a community, your family at home is a community. So to be a beacon in your community, that's the only way you can overcome the darkness, or at least fight it back.
Well, you could see it too with so many people. Like I found out another person committed suicide. Well, they OD'd, so they kind of accidentally suicided themselves. But they're going towards that self-destruction intentionally.
Yeah.
And the pandemic has forced people to reevaluate, and some of them can't deal with it. And that's why I feel like this podcast for us was like you say, it just burst out to try to connect with people. Because I think the normal that we were in were like what you were saying, Allyson. I think we were all in our little bubbles, and we weren't really like branching out and getting outside of our bubbles enough, whether personal or just like a community.
Well, we were being safe.
Yes.
Physically.
Extremely.
But I feel that we were being risk takers in other ways if we were to thrive. You know what I'm saying? If we're going to be an organization on the other side, or if we're going to have anything, we have to take certain risks. And we took the risk of starting our podcast, seriously. We had a few things up on our Cosm.tv YouTube channel. We had a couple dozen, from other people's interactions and whatever. But this was the March of 2020. We did the vernal equinox first, then we did the full moon that month. We have a pattern of doing all the full moons, new moons, and the equinoxes and solstices that we do not want, especially the full moons, which started Cosm. Really, our first full moon was January 2003. So we have them numbered. And people know which number they went to. You know what I'm saying? So we were not going to stop, and we had to do it as a podcast. So in a way, we started. This is why Johnny became a cameraman. Because he's the technician, and we've gotten equipment, and we've made it happen, and we have well over 100 entries now. But anyway, it was a definite risk for us as well because it was free. We were going to give it all away. And we were going to stop having events, stop having guests at all, which we thought was so important to our economy, not just in our outreach to our community, but we have reached, hundreds of thousands more people this way, really, when you compare it to the people who had to make it here to get to a full moon, because we didn't have it. So now we are reaching more people, but we're also preparing to open again to the public. We're not yet. We're not there yet.
I can't wait. We feel incredibly lucky too, as hosts of. We had conversations about doing a podcast before the pandemic, but like the bubbles we were in or the routines that we were in, we were like, we did that kind of, once things get less busy, which we always tend to do, right? Like I'll take better care of myself I'll start working out once I hit this number, whatever, all that later. But then the world was like, all right, it's time. But we get to talk to folks like you. We get to talk to people, and everything seems to organically just go vulnerable, which is the greatest. I mean, I really find vulnerability to be a lot easier these days because it's just, there's no choice, and it feels like that's what needs to be. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like that's what's needed now. We don't have to go through this alone.
Yeah, I think that's what people really relate to in art. That's what I relate to in art when I feel that pain or that joy or that whatever. That's what draws me like a moth to the light. And I feel like it's you start to get more and more vulnerable. Yeah. It's just I don't know where it's just honesty, really. You just wear your heart on your sleeve or on the page or on tape.
I think that's a hallmark of a artist too. Is there, or a comedian who's really breaking ground, because you have to find that thread of your unique self, that wants expressing, and it's finding the comfort level within yourself to allow it, to have the courage, to let it out. And so it sometimes, takes a lot of, by the time we get ready to share ourselves, we've also got a mind, and so as creative people, what we do with that, and how it influences our work, and whether we remain vulnerable to the suffering of others, to our own suffering. And I think that one of the primary and obvious things about this past year is that I don't know one segment of society that couldn't look at what has happened and not find some tragic, a tragedy there. And so we've all been through an international calamity, and that we continue to, start to untangle and work through and find how do we relate to everyone now, and do we have to be careful of these people versus those people and things like that, and what kind of society are we going to live in? So all these questions, are part of what I think should make ourselves honest. Try to find that vulnerable and honest place inside of ourselves to see what kind of world we want to live in. Yeah. And I think that we've all been positing that possibility where we're going to have a world for your children and for everyone's children, and a suitable planet, and to do what we can at this time to mitigate the and make more sustainable our relationship with the planet. I think that all of these things, that's the looming future that we see as we've gone through a very troublesome struggle in the past year. We see struggle ahead too. So
what's our part? What are we going to do?
To be present with God in the moment, and to find the right medicine of the moment, to be able to be open, vulnerable, not close in fear, but to see and choose, that kind of world we want to live in.
One of the things that's keeps popping up for me lately, and it's so relevant to you guys' artwork, is you mentioned it before, and Raghu Marcus was talking about in this podcast I was listening to this morning about embracing your own shadow. Like, you got to love that. And as even at this late date in my life, I feel like that's the real thing that I'm almost in a way like just now really starting on. Like, I know all those parts that are still effed up, bad, and it's like, okay, can you love that part? Can you accept that part? It is there, and you guys' artwork really, I think that's a big theme. Yeah. Can you talk about that a little? Because that's where I need a little more preaching on it right now, because I'm trying to do it.
Well, I think that everybody gets down, I think, sometimes, and some of us more than others. And It's interesting. The shadow is really something that I think Jung helped us to see, that there's some unconscious elements in everyone that we don't want to tell the world about, and they're probably in that drawer. We contain a lot of the things we wish we had never done or that never happened, but they did, and we can't get off our minds, or that maybe it's a bad habit that we continue, that gnaws at us. And some of these things we don't even know where they come from, but if you do some digging, you probably find some sources. So, and this is where the healing comes in too. So if we don't explore in some way or examine or allow in the room and allow it to be acknowledged, all of ourselves, then we don't have all of ourselves to draw from as people, and we can't heal as deeply as we probably need to. And so the surfacing of some of these things, shadow elements, and whether they come through, I think it's healthy for anyone, any person, not just people who think they're artists and stuff like that, but for any person to journal, to write poetry about, to just describe feelings verbally, then also to make pictures about things that may be the trouble spots and stuff like that. See, it's the psychologists, I've been told, say that the real way to kind of overcome a troubling state and to basically arrive at a higher level is to take that, is to have an objective perspective on that subjective state. You somehow have to get outside of it and look at it. And so, because, in that state of despair or something like that, you can't see your way out. So
it's the principle of art therapy.
Yeah. So what happens then is when you're in the feeling and are expressing it, then you're literally objectifying that subjective state. And so it enables you to immediately then be outside of the monster is out of the box, the box of your head, and onto the paper or into the song or into the sound.
So here's the takeaway for anybody out there who is experiencing depression, and we all do sometimes, and especially in this COVID time. Be more creative. I don't know how you should be more creative. You just need to put more creativity into your life. And this is what a lot of people have done. More baking, even more photography and sharing on Instagram, with writing involved, like sharing your life. This is why during this period, a lot of people have been self-reflective. We've had to stay home. We've had to go inside. Physically, we have been forced inside, even though the effort and the energy, I think, is to how do we connect while staying apart? Because a lot of people are connecting even more. Like I was saying, we are connecting with. We have a person. We have people who come to our members circle to draw with us for an hour, to music and this and that, who come every time from Australia and Guatemala and all over the frickin' Ganze Welt, They come from everywhere, and we can all be together in the room and they can talk to us. It's like beautiful. There's a way that there's more possibility of connectedness, but then there is, that essentializing your life because, you can't afford to go out as much or to just anything. So you bring it all home, look it over, and make evaluative changes in your life. So anyway, I think it's been, the best of times and the worst of times.
Absolutely.
It has. It's a gift.
By having that offering too, you're giving so many people a gift that, I remember, Oteil, I may have mentioned to you that course I took in college. That was a real leap of, visual journaling, where my advisor would give us like a topic or a very broad, open-ended, write about the time you were the most afraid or the time you were most in love or the most embarrassed. And we would write with no right or wrong. There was no grading. But then we turned to a notebook and crayons or chalk or watercolors, and we literally just, put a visual piece on that. And it was nice to look at it from those two different angles that you never were able to before. And I remember, and I'm not a very good illustrator, but it felt good to get it out and then go like, I never looked at it that way before. I never looked at it ever.
Well,
someone else was looking at it.
That's our job as a beacon. See, if we see ourselves at Cosm Infion as a beacon, it's like, how can we, how is the best way to lift people up? Because it's, we all have our struggles, and during these times we're reflecting on them quite a bit. How do we lift people up? And that is, be creative. I really think that, coming into the room, we have people who come every time and journal and then read their poetry or just journaling out loud. Our dear friends who've been with us for all the years we've been doing this are reading out loud, and they're able to continue. So anyway, it's very nice to share that way, and the creative aspect is very important. We insist on silence, too, because it's more inward. You have to have music, but you have to have silence.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, just listening to music and making art together.
That's right.
It's and with a kind of a subject in mind. And so it's been a great ritual. And, there's nothing you have to believe, really. And a friend was pointing out how there's a couple of different approaches to the religious, and we fit very nicely into, I think, one of them. See, the two that he was differentiating was that in some groups, religious groups, they just come together, and the emphasis is on connecting. With and just feeling a sense of connectedness, and it may be by group song, it may be by somehow it's about that ecstatic, effervescent uplift that you can have with a group that you feel spiritually united with. And then another approach is about doctrine. And the correct belief, and that can't be questioned. And so we're less, we don't have any of that. I think we
have core values.
Yeah, our only dogma is we howl at the moon. I guess that's. Yeah.
But we do have core values, and I think that they are, and a perennial kind of philosophy, as Aldous Huxley would put it, So we have those, and we share those, and
That's why I love when it doesn't get hung up in the ritual. See, to me, when I finally made that contact with God, and I approached it all with a new attitude, I went, oh well, of course, this is why we do these things over and over, because to remind ourselves, like all of us know. You slip back into your old stuff. Oh, I gained that 10 pounds back or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you do these things to remind yourself, but then somehow, it splits into these two things where it's like, you got to follow this ritual, but it's like, then it becomes about the ritual and not about what it's supposed to remind you of.
Right.
Necessarily, And
that was
that's
the
what
problem.
I love about you guys.
Well, that was the problem I always had with religion, Catholicism in particular, was that just like that presence of guilt, that like the minute you feel good, it's like, oh, don't forget you're imperfect and God died to save you. And it's like, shit, that's right. It's my fault. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's my
as
fault.
Artists, we defy, Alex says, and as artists, we do defy dogma. We like to test it.
If you marry these, my idea is that really art is the oldest religion, and that it's been part of every religion. You know, ever notice that? They all have like literature, art forms, you know, the cultural artifacts
hymns.
Of the expression of the people, you know, is quite often seen in the temples and in the religious literature and all the rest of these things. But art helps to it's the way that the imagination, you know, and when are you ever going to meet God? You know, it's in the theater of your imagination that happens, you know, whether you're tripping or, you know, with an exogenous chemical, or whether, you know, your DMT light turned on in your brain, you know, it's a, you know, there are kind of brain states and neurochemicals that are probably always in confluence. We really don't know what DMT is doing in our brain. You know, there's as much DMT in there as there is serotonin and dopamine, any of the major neurotransmitters. So something's happening, and it probably has to do with how we're imagining what we're seeing right now, you know, and that, you know, neuroscientists would say that everything that we experience is a figment of our imagination.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, we're concocting an external world and projecting it out there, and it sure is convincing to me, you know, but I know my brain is just a little piece of flesh locked in a box. Somehow we're able to create a whole world, you know. I think it's miraculous that we got a spirit living in us.
Yeah. You know, you see all the most rigid right-wing Orthodox people of every religion tend to be the harshest towards the artistic expressions, right, in the religion. Right. I remember watching this LSD documentary, and there was one point they were talking about the Sufis, and they were talking about it looked like, it really reminded me of a Grateful Dead concert, because they had all these bright colors, and there's poetry and dance and music, and, you know, like all the really right-wing Muslims, the most Orthodox, no dancing, no this, you know, stop all that. And I was like, oh my God, these are like the Islamic hippies. You know, and Islam was spread mostly, if I'm not mistaken, by the Sufis through art and poetry and all that stuff. And, you know, and I was like, wow, it really is. You see it in the same thing in Christianity or whatever religion, you know. But that art thing, it was like there, like you said, it was there first. You know, I think that is what God says, that God made us in God's image. Well, what's God? A creator.
Exactly.
So of course, you're going to sort it out. Being creative, that's when we're most like God. That's where we'll be in tune with God, touch God, you know, commune with God.
We want to leave a trace of a culture that actually lived in love and harmony. So, you know, that's, you know, you do leave a trace around your war toys and things like that too. So that comes up. You find knives and arrowheads and things like that, and that's part of history. But the making of them is an art, really.
Yeah.
You know, to make an arrowhead out of stone, I mean, it's a craft, it's an art. So Absolutely. All of it is creative. All of it is, you know, I think for the betterment of the people, somewhere down deep inside, although killing and everything, but you have to feed, you have to eat, you have to kill animals, so you have to take down a bison now and then and share it with the tribe. I mean, and then you make art about it too. I mean, there's all the cave paintings showing the life of the people of that time. Leaving a trace is very human. Animals don't really do this as much. I mean, they have nests. They do leave their nests and their, in various homes that they create. But humans really just do it for the purpose of leaving a trace. I mean, sometimes just the little, the Lion Man or the little Venus of Willendorf, these handheld talismans that people carried around or used in rituals in their homes. Like when they found a Lion Man, which was a little statue of a half human, half lion, they found another one like just 500 yards away. So people had this thing about the Lion Man, and they had a Lion Man in their home. For what? Just as a symbol that represented some spiritual part of their life. And it's as old as that. And we have our private rituals too. It's not just traditions that have rituals. We make up our own rituals. We create our own altars, And so, just seeing it in a spiritual context.
Yeah, I created some pretty bad rituals too.
Well,
you get rid of.
Really, I know. And it's as Allyson was saying it, as artists, we can't abide dogma, and to be creative is about, finding new ways of doing things. And so if you marry that to religion, which is maybe about making, like the codes and doing it the right. But as you were pointing out, the Sufis, the mystic sort of heart, one of the mystic hearts of Islam, were all about dancing. They were all about the arts, the poetry of Rumi and Hafiz, all these, great masters of the arts. But they were because they were in full contact with spirit, and that was their aim. The dance, was to become centered. So I feel like there are opportunities that creativity and spirituality can flow together. And how do we find a religious orientation for the future?
Yes.
The idea that a friend of ours, Bob Jesse, shared was that the mystical experience, the primal contact of you with God and self, that's the primary religious experience.
Right.
And mystical experience is at the foundation of every world religion. And likely by the founders of those religions, and yet they had some kind of God contact and stuff. So that where was I going?
Well, I like that the God contact led to all the religions. So you've got Judaism, where Moses saw the burning bush.
Yes.
And you have, Muhammad riding through the seventh heavens on the back of a human-headed donkey.
The Barak. Yeah. And these are visionary, mystical experiences. Mary saw the angel, and...
Well, Jesus was totally in contact with the divine. I mean, he had God contact all the time. He felt, I think, that he was channeling the divine in all of his talk and everything that he did. And so this goes on.
Right.
And,
so that's the primary religious experience.
There you
go.
Yeah. And now the secondary religious experience is everything after that. Everything else that happens, But the reason that religion is valid as a thing and important still is because humans do have mystical experiences.
Yeah.
And the flow of and record and what happened in the wake of those experiences is how we see world religion.
And people that have those experiences tend to want to gather. That's the other thing.
Of course, because
that causes religion to happen.
Yeah.
Is that people want to tie back. That's what religio means. Tie back to the source, the divine. They want to tie back, but they also want to talk about it with other people, get together and be with people who've also had that experience. They come from all different walks of life, all different, backgrounds, but they want to somehow meet with other people who have also shared that. Whether or not they've had the experience, actually, a lot of people want to have the experience, so they come together with others who have. And so that's why religions continue, because some people think that they shouldn't, but they start. You may not want to go with one of the traditional ones, but they start on their own from people who are together.
It's a natural reaction. I mean, when you make contact with the divine, I guarantee you're going to dance, or you're going to
cry,
write something down, or paint something, or
have a memory of it that you want to paint.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's that natural reaction to this contact. And that's, like you say, is why it will never die. It will never die. It's we're wired for it. And when it happens, I mean, it's all, in a way, it's all rejoicing, like, wow, I met love. Holy crap.
And art.
It's our job to make it better. It's our job to make it better. That's all. To go back and not let it be evil or do wrong to people, but rather, and to look at what has gone wrong in the case of all the traditions that have gone by, and try to be something other, to try to give people what people need in their spiritual life while still, I don't know.
Not demanding the adherence to a mythology, and to transcend the dogmas that are limiting and harmful, to the world or to the self, and find a way to look. Where are we going? I think that we're going toward a planetary society, a planetary civilization. If we're not headed there, we're headed for destruction. And it seems like unless we choose to go toward a planetary civilization, to unite together as a world, to have world spirit, to not be divisive, because all of our problems are whole world problems and whole system problems. So it demands that if we're going to have any fixes at all, that we have to think globally. We have to think what's good for the whole planet. And so if what, on Earth could possibly be a planetary religion. Now we know that there's billions of this and billions of that, and we're not going to get anybody to change their orientation. And some would say, well, it has to be ours. Ours is biggest. Ours deserves the place. But no, that would never work, and we know it would never work. So we can't go there as there has to be one world religion. That would be ridiculous. But a religious orientation that could be valid in the face of the wide acceptance of all approaches to the divine.
Can I say this about religion? I want to say one positive thing about religion. Oh, you want to finish?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to finish.
Yes.
That kind of universal point of religion, that you make contact with the divine and something creative and positive comes through it. That you can find in all world religions, and it's perhaps a spiritual or religious attitude in itself. And that's why we've been promoting the idea of creativity as a spiritual practice.
It's like you're promoting an intention.
Yes.
Right.
I wanted to just say that religions are there to tell the stories.
Right.
And the stories are history. So they're basically parables and myths because they don't exist anymore. They're in the past and they get passed down and changed and whatever. And it's our job to interpret them, not to take them at their face value, but to learn from them. They're teaching stories. They're only stories. If we take them literally, it's to our own peril. You know, we have to look at and take what we need from them. That's all.
Yeah.
There's this pastor named Rob Bell, and he always said, I've said this a million times on the podcast, so forgive me, comes a time fans, but he says the point is not did Adam and Eve happen, it's does Adam and Eve happen. And that happened for me when I took the advice of the voices that told me to read it. Page 1, boom, nailed me. It kept nailing me on every successive page. It has my number. It still happened. It happened to me. Adam, why are you hiding from me? Because I was ashamed. Who told you to be ashamed? You're perfect. I didn't tell you to be ashamed. Right? The critic told you to be, like it's you don't get off of page 1.
Oh God.
And I just was like, I always find that we have this thing that a theme that keeps running, the duality, the yin yang, the tension, like you need to have the darkness so that you know what pure love is and all that. And when I started studying Judaism a little bit more through Abraham Joshua Heschel, I learned that the temple had a right wing and a left wing head. So I think it was Hillel and Shammai at that time, right before Jesus. And this is where Jesus got the golden rule from.
Oh, yes.
And they had on one side this thing that they called building a fence around the law. So it's like, okay, you can't work on the Sabbath. Well, what's work? It's turning on the light work. It's making your bed work. So then they build a fence. You can't do all these things so that we don't violate that one commandment. So then you had 10 commandments turned to 600 and something. But then on the other side, you had the left-wing guy like Hillel, and someone came to him being very, I don't know what the word is, smug, or say, can you tell me the whole meaning of the Torah while standing on one foot? And he lifted up one foot and he said, that which is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. And then he put his foot down. And I was like, oh man. So you have this yin yang where you see like these guys, the ultra right wing people originally had a sincere intention. They didn't want to break that law. So they built a fence around each law with all these other rules.
Rabbi Hillel, by the way, was commenting on a parsha from the Torah. So the Torah, which was written 3,500 years ago, Rabbi Hillel was somewhere more around the time of Christ, actually.
Yeah, 80 BC.
2,000 years later. But that is, it's coming up. It's like every week in Judaism, you read certain the portions of the Torah, and that is the one it's psychic because that is the one where they talk about do unto others as you have to do to you. That was something that Jesus knew because he knew the Torah.
That's right. All those Christians were Orthodox Jews. People forget. That's why I love to trace it back. You could trace it straight back to Egypt and then you find you're like, oh, we're all saying, like you said, it's the same thing. We're all reacting to this contact with God in our different individual and cultural, maybe tribal ways in every category, right?
And now we're with, I don't know whether you checked out Brian Murarescu's book, The Immortality Key.
I'm writing it down right now.
But
a little book club.
It's a great review of the world history of psychedelics.
Yes.
And how Göbekli Tepe, it was actually back in Turkey, oldest temples found. And
12,000 BC.
A lot of temples there. They discovered that there was definitely mead going on. And that they were bringing agricultural products there and malting. And very likely the first temples were the first brewery.
Yeah.
And so that, but there were other additives that made these brews a lot more psychoactive. And they have now ancient chemical analysis of some of these brews and have found sort of smoking guns of psychedelic, kind of early use of psychedelics. So, and the idea that Dionysus or Bacchus, there was a whole eating the flesh and drinking the blood of Dionysus was certainly a practice, the body and the blood. So the psychedelic Eucharist seems to have been born in the sort of underground catacombs there in Rome, and that the practice may have been that Jesus had had his spiked wine, but wanted it to be available for everyone. It was the people rather than these restricted kind of only the pharaoh gets to use it, or only certain others get to use it and stuff. So there's always been this struggle. The mysteries of Eleusis, a 2,000-year-old religion of Greece, now is, I think he's somewhat established that the kykeon, that was a psychedelic brew. So it's really interesting to see that potentially, and of course they found in Israel scrapings off the early sort of temple areas where they found cannabis residue and things. So there's been cannabis certainly at the foundations of Hinduism and likelihood Soma. They have some hypotheses now of it just being the mushroom, but psychedelics were involved with the earliest world religions. And
I'd like to just plug that Immortality Key is available as an audio book, and you can hear it read by the author, who is a genius. I really recommend it. It was a wonderful listen, I have to say.
Nothing is better than an audiobook read by the author.
Well, it's a doorstop of a book, but it really takes you through. So it's like, it was a pleasure. We paint and listen to things. So if you have something like that, it's really wonderful.
What's the name of that author again?
Brian Mororescu.
But it's called The Immortality Key.
And I believe it's Mures.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Look for The Immortality Key.
Yeah.
I will.
Was legalized in New York.
Cannabis was just legalized
Today.
in New York.
Today.
Today.
Yeah, today. Yep. And
Signed
retroactive.
today,
Signed by
just now, John.
Cuomo.
This is the legal incoming. Boy, have we been waiting a long time.
So I'll have a nice big exhale on that one, huh?
Honestly, seriously.
That's right. Hey, wait a minute.
Nice
I'm from Washington,
Cheers,
D.C.
everybody.
On camera.
Cheers.
Well, it's not legal yet, actually. It is legal now.
Stupid pens are.
All right. Well, there you go.
A little celebration. Man, I didn't think I was going to be able to have this celebration with you guys.
An outlaw since 1969.
Man, come on.
An outlaw.
Oh,
But hey, now I'm legal.
that's
That's
right.
right.
But
That's
we
right.
don't want to keep you guys all day long. We could literally
love
talk
it.
to you for
Thank
3
you.
hours.
Yeah, this is. Would you guys ever please come back and hang with us
Yeah.
again? If
Oh,
you,
we
we'd
love
to
you
have
guys. Thank you for inviting us to share these blessed moments. It's really great to get together with other creative people and talk about God.
Thank you both so much for everything that you've given so many people so much joy and so many keys to so many doors. Thank you for open. That's really,
Me personally, I got to tell you, like finding you guys, I was like, yes. I mean, a lot of my life is like that, where you're like, okay, I'm crazy. I know I'm just crazy, and that's it. God made me this way. It's fine. But you know, when you find some other people, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. You know, so you've really helped fortify me. You know, in my times when I was feeling like I'm kind of just going at it on my own, and thank you. I just want to thank you.
It's an honor.
Really do, and I can't wait to actually be able to come there. And
I live very close to where you guys are, so I'm excited to come visit too. So
please come play someday, or just we'll take you a tour through Entheon, which is the sanctuary of visionary art that our community is building here with us. And
it's not open right now. I want to be clear.
I know.
But stay tuned to cosm.org and you'll know all what's coming up, because we will be, you know, we haven't installed all the galleries yet in Entheon.
Yeah.
And it has to get its certificate of occupancy first. So we're right up to that inspection time, and we're getting there.
Maybe this year. Maybe this year.
I hope so.
We'll put it out there. Decriminalization of marijuana, and you get your certification. What a year 2021 will be.
Come on. Bring it on. Bring it on. I can't wait to, you know, we got to do this, Mike, because I follow you on Instagram. So all the solstices and equinoxes and full moons, man, y'all's full moon thing, and you're like, I love following those cycles, you know. So I can't wait till I'm actually there for one of them with my banjo in hand.
Come over here, you guys, and we'll follow you around with the camera.
Yes,
excellent.
Great. Thank you guys so much, really.
Okay, love you.